all been there. You're having a ball of a time with your friends, singing songs. Maybe you've had a few drinks and want to sing some karaoke. You get up on the stage. Your song is going great until your voice cracks. Your tone goes completely off and your voice just wavers. Twinkle, twinkle, little star. I am the singing diva, and I'm here to help with all your vocal and singing concerns. So in today's video, we're going to be getting into this topic of embarrassment that is so common. The nervousness that's accompanied with it, I've seen in countless students that have come to me, especially in their first few lessons. People are even just so shy to sing in front of me, and I'm one person. Imagine in front of a crowd. So just to break the ice a bit, I'm going to share with you one of my most embarrassing moments. I was in high school, and at that age you're even more self-conscious. It was during a time when everybody was out on the sports field because they were practicing for the big sports day that we had coming up. So pretty much most of the teachers and most of the students were out on the grounds. Most of the school was there, okay? And one of my crazy immature friends from primary school decided that he would push me down the bank in front of everyone. He was actually pushing down a whole lot of girls. You have this bank that goes down sort of like a wave onto the sports field. So we were standing at the top and we were just like watching everything that was going on, everybody training, because it wasn't our day for training on that specific day. So I see him pushing down all the girls on the side of my eye, and I didn't have enough time to get away. I probably just froze in that moment. Lo and behold, there I go, not just down the bank, but into the cricket fence that's on the ground in front of the entire school. I smashed into the cricket fence, back onto the floor and into a little puddle of mud because it had been raining, so there were these mud puddles all around. The entire school I could see, like in front of me, turn, stare and burst out laughing. Even teachers could see what was happening and they burst out laughing. I remember waking up from the floor in my school uniform, full of mud, but absolutely angry. I stormed off to find this boy and give him a piece of my mind, but he was obviously so scared, he ran away. That was the end of that story. I'd like to compare that, fast forward a good couple of years later, okay? At that time, I was only about 13. So the next moment I want to share was where I had to do a speech in front of a crowd of people. I had went on a trip with the church group and we needed to give feedback about what we had experienced in this area that we went to. So I had planned out my entire speech in my mind. I got it down to the T and I felt so confident. I'm thinking like, I don't even need thumb cards. You know the thumb cards you have, you like put everything or your keynote on the thumb cards. I'm like, I don't even need that. I'm, so confident in my speech. I don't want to be holding these cards in front of everyone and everyone thinking I even need thumb cards. I'm just going to be speaking naturally. Come time of my speech, started out brilliantly. In my mind, I'm going over point by point, and then somewhere I just lose it and I can't remember what was my next point. So I'm standing there in front of this whole crowd of people, and in my mind I'm just like staring out into space, and I'm thinking about my thumb cards, my bullet points, and what was my next thought process, what was my next topic of discussion, not realizing I am standing there with this blank look on my face in front of the entire crowd. Once I realized, I felt that same wave of heat. Do you know what I'm talking about? When you're really embarrassed, you just feel this like hot flush coming over you. I felt my face go red, and then I'm thinking like, oh my God, I am so embarrassed. I still can't remember what was my point, what was the next thing I was going to talk about. So I gave this nervous little giggle in front of everyone, and in my mind I quickly just skipped down to which was the next point I could remember, quickly finished up the speech, but I felt like such a disaster. Like I had completely ruined the speech. And actually it was not even supposed to be so formal. It didn't have to be. It could have been something more casual, but I made it in my mind into this big formal thing where it needed to be so perfect. So why I've given you that example as well is to compare the two. Number one is age plays a factor. In the first example, I was 13. I was a lot younger compared to the next example. Okay, so at 13, from my reaction, you could tell I got really defensive. I, wanted to go out and give that boy a piece of my mind. I felt so angry. I felt so embarrassed seeing everybody laugh at me. I just couldn't handle it. And so that was my reaction. Compared to the other example where it was a bit better in that I still kept going. Yes, I did feel embarrassed and I did really beat myself up about it in my mind, but there is a level of progress there compared to the first time. So this is why I say age is a factor. As we grow and life goes on, we do get a bit better with time and with age. I find we stop worrying about things as much. Fast forward to a few years right now, I feel I've gotten a lot better compared to what I was like back then as far as how I deal with embarrassment, because I've worked on that issue so much where I don't feel so worried about people's opinions. I mean, look, we all do worry about people's opinions to some degree. And that can actually be healthy. Sometimes we need to take into consideration, for example, what our parents say or what your partner may say. So their response is important, their feedback. But I find when it comes to specifically embarrassing situations, I'm not as self-conscious as I used to be, which is an amazing thing that's happened with time. I'm really working on being my authentic self. So, with all of my horrendously embarrassing stories out of the way, well, not all of them, that was just two. Trust me, there are plenty more. So, with all of those out of the way, to give you a little bit of background, I have found some great ways to really deal with the embarrassment, and we can apply them when it comes to our singing or speaking, being around and engaging with people, our overall confidence levels. So the first one is your mental dialogue. Now, in my previous video, I did touch a bit on what goes on in the mind and how to become a little bit more aware of that, so you have more control and you can actually do something about it. A lot of the time we may have these negative voices playing in our minds, but we're not even really aware of it. We just sort of believe whatever our mind is telling us, and we don't need to always do that. We can question those beliefs. So this is where the mental dialogue part comes in. If you are in a situation where you get embarrassed, your voice cracks, wavers, your tone goes off, or you just don't find like you sang the song very nicely, whatever it may be, there's a mental dialogue that goes on. So you might be telling yourself like, oh, I sounded so bad, or oh, what are they going to think? Or oh my goodness, I look terrible, I sound terrible. The fact is, nobody is going to remember that situation. Not even in a few years after, in a few moments after. People are always on to the next thing. So they're not necessarily going to remember, oh, do you know so and so messed up a song? Did you hear how bad they sounded? The worst people may do is even laugh or feel embarrassed for you. But reframing your mental dialogue in that moment is so important. Being able to just laugh it off if you see people laughing at you. I know, you will eventually get to that point. But it's basically not as big a deal as we may make of it in our minds. I have found the same thing with myself. In that moment, doing the speech, I felt like this is just the world's caving in on me. But other people were totally normal with me after the whole service and stuff that we had. Everybody was just like, not even phased. So the mental dialogue we have can really exaggerate things. It's up to us to reframe it so that we're doing the opposite, and actually not so much just positive self-talk or whatever that comes off very fake, but just being realistic about it. The fact is, people don't care that much. People are going to think of something else after that situation. People are going to hear the next person sing or the next person give a speech. If they have a tendency to laugh at people, then they're going to be laughing at the next person after you. So, point is, you don't need to stress yourself out too much, and remember to remind yourself of this in your mind whenever you're in those situations. On to our next point, which is to keep going. I think of this time I was in primary school and doing a speech in front of the entire class. Now, I'd say, pretty good at that, the public speaking from a young age. I'd really love to just get it over and done with. If everyone in the class has got to stand in the front and do a speech, with my delivery, I wanted it to be not just quick, but also wanted to get it over and done with as fast as possible, so it's out of the way. I was one of those students who would put their hand up first, like, I'll go first, or I'll go second, I don't mind, to get the stress and the nerves of it out of the way. Whereas compared to most of the other students would just wait till it's like the last bit of time for the lesson, where the teacher would actually have to call them up, or probably hopefully think the teacher would just forget about them. But anyway, I was pretty good in that regard, and I remember this one time, just this one time, completely out of character for me. Like, this has never ever happened to me before or since. But for some reason, completely out of nowhere, this one time I'm standing in front of the class, delivering my speech, and just before I can begin, I don't know if it was something like a panic attack or whatever you would call it, maybe on a very mild level, but I heard my mind just going crazy, saying, run out the door. Don't do this. You can't do this. It was crazy, but that voice actually made me feel scared. So I'm standing there ready to deliver my speech, and I'm hearing this voice. I had the choice to stand there, deliver my speech, and ignore this voice. Well, try to ignore it. It was a really loud, scary thought that had come in. Or I could have bolted for the door, which was just next to me. What I did in that moment was take control. So there will be those times you feel like maybe just you've messed up a song or you've messed up a talk. Just get off the stage. Just run off in the middle of it in front of everybody. don't even complete it. And I'd like to encourage you to keep going when you are in that moment and you have the choice. Should I stay and complete this talk or this song, or should I just bolt? You should keep going. Take control, take charge in that moment. Like what I did, not listening to that voice. I'm not going to be embarrassed and run out the door. I'm going to ignore you, voice, and I am going to keep on at it. I am going to do my speech. I'm going to do it well. And that is exactly what happened. Up to this day, I've actually never talked about it. Nobody, not a soul, knows about this whole incident that happened. That was totally in my mind, where I got so nervous hearing this voice. And I'm glad I chose to do what I did in the moment, because my speech went great. I got full marks and I was happy. Everyone was happy. So I made the right choice. Now, the third little piece of advice I have for you when you mess up a song and are feeling embarrassed is to literally laugh it off. You know, when I was standing in front of that crowd, the church crowd, and I had forgotten my speech, I did this little nervous laugh. I don't know, something like that. But it's a thing we humans, many of us, very often tend to do. It's like a natural response almost. So with this one, I think it can help a lot to just diffuse the situation. We tend to take things too seriously in life in general. Well, if you're not one of those people, I'm saying I definitely am one of those. In general, I am so serious. And I'm like, sometimes, Diva, take a chill pill. Stop taking life so bloody seriously. Have some fun. And a lot of it, again, comes down to how we think about things, that mental dialogue we have. But we can change so much of that just by reframing and laughing things off, not being so serious all the time. I do that. It's like a bit of a robot thing, you know, how we can be sometimes, just so serious all the time. It makes life really boring. And I mean, who wouldn't want to have some more fun in their life? So here I'm going to give you one more quick example. You know how I say I'm like so serious robot all the time? Sometimes I can be, okay, well, not sometimes, if I'm being honest, a lot of the time, I can be very serious like that in my relationship. And I found the boyfriend tends to help me with that a lot. He has a very playful, childlike side, and that helps to diffuse a lot of my seriousness. So, for example, if he has left laundry on the floor or forgotten to clean something up that he was supposed to clean up, I can get very serious about it and point that out to him so that he knows he needs to do this and not always expect me to be cleaning up. You know, I can get quite flustered about it. So sometimes I'll be telling him something like that, just a random example, okay? And he will completely diffuse the situation by just saying something silly or making a funny face. So I am like doing a serious talk here, and then I get this person just doing something silly. And before you know it, I can't hold my laughter in. I just burst out laughing at this crazy person. So I think it's actually a wonderful technique. Instead of always taking things so seriously like I usually do, I've learned to appreciate this as a gift. Learning to laugh things off can just make life so much easier for us. And definitely when it comes to these embarrassing situations, learn to laugh it off. That's something very important actually that I speak to my new students about when they first come in. I remember having students that were always so afraid of messing up. And if you can just laugh it off, it diffuses it. It's not as harsh, it's not as bad. You don't need to be so critical of yourself if you can just laugh it off. And disclaimer, I remind people also not to get offended. It's very important to be able to laugh it off if you want to learn and progress in your singing and vocal journey. If you can't laugh at yourself, you're going to find you being very frustrated with yourself, very harsh, mean, and critical to yourself in your mind. It doesn't help anything. If anything, it slows down your progress. So there's no need to be offended. Even if sometimes I might laugh or have a little giggle, let's laugh together. I'm a professional, but I have vocal breaks and cracks and wavers all the time, especially when you are practicing new songs. You need to repeat them and practice them until you get them perfect. And even then too, it's never 100%. Remember, people are still doing editing and all of that stuff when they are putting a song out there. You're not going to hear necessarily the uncut version. So it's important to bear things like that in mind when we're together and we're practicing. Being able to just laugh it off will help, really help take you further in the long run. Now, I have put together this beautiful course called Learn How to Sing. Vocal training that takes you from beginner through to intermediate and advanced level. So it doesn't matter whereabout on your journey you are with your vocals or your singing. Anybody and everybody can do this course and benefit from it. Transform your vocals and really build your confidence. So if you're interested in that, I'm going to link all the information in the description box below. Be sure to check it out. In the comment section for today, I'd love to hear your embarrassing stories. So since we're all sharing, let's be brave. Tell us some of your most embarrassing moments, or even if you can't tell us the most embarrassing one, if it's that bad, you can tell us maybe the second or third most embarrassing moment that you had, and let's all have a laugh. Let's all remember that we're human, we all make mistakes, we all have embarrassing moments, and I think by sharing that, it's going to help encourage other people along their journey with their vocals, their singing, and life in general when it comes to embarrassing moments. So don't be shy, let's hear yours. Go ahead and drop some in the comment section. I know sometimes navigating these embarrassing situations can be very difficult for all of us. But if you apply the information and tips that I've given you in this video today, it's going to make life a lot easier for you. In my next video, I'm going to be showing you a relaxing breathing exercise that we can do together. So you'll want to join me in that next video. Until then, my divas, stay awesome.